I've had some really good questions. And even though I've spoken about it, I think they hear it, but they don't understand it or believe it. When I'm taking my kitchen scraps and the garbage from around the garden, people ask, when you put it in your flower pots and your containers, can you grow plants in it right away? How long do you have to wait? Does it have to break down? Does it have to turn into soil first and compost? And as I show you in the way I do it, no, I don't wait for it to break down. Now, I can't say that every single plant that grows can grow the same way. I'm not into exotic flowers and into exotic plants, and we're not talking about succulents and cactus. What I'm dealing with is food. Plants that grow food for us. Plants that grow food for animals. Plants that grow food in general. You know, like tomatoes and cucumbers and squash and watermelon and corn and everything. These are plants that grow fruit, because technically the food that's coming off of it is actually a fruit, but they're vegetable plants. And in nature, these particular plants would grow the food, which is, it grows their offspring, which is the vegetables, which in turn, if you think about a tomato, a cucumber, even squash on the ground, what happens to it? It grows and gets bigger and bigger, and then it becomes ripe, and then usually it falls to the ground. Or an animal does grab it and drag it off. Or it blows off, or it falls over, like a corn stalk would fall over. And then what would happen is it would hit the ground, and it would sit there, and it would rot. Because if nobody's going to pick it up, it's going to break down. Your fungi, your fungus, your insects are going to chew it up, and it's going to just decay and rot away. But that's the way it's supposed to be. So as it's rotting into the ground, and let's say, for instance, a squash, that can last for many, many months. I've had squash sitting, in the house for 7-8 months. Pumpkins. Oh, used to have pumpkins from Halloween sit in the house for a year, just sitting on the floor. And then finally it's like, okay, I got to do something with it. And eventually it would rot out. But the point is, outside it would break down quicker because of the weather. But that's what it's supposed to do. It would rot and break down into the ground. And as the plant itself is breaking down, it's actually producing food for the seeds, which is like a baby. I mean, you've got dogs and cats, and, they feed off a mom and they get milk. But when it comes to your vegetable plants, that matter, the microbes, the insects that all come, are creating food for the baby plants. So when it comes to vegetables, they love it. When you take your rotting kitchen matter, and put it in a bucket outside or a container, it's going to grow in there. Like I've said before, and I think I've showed it a few times already, when I take the compost and I dump in my compost bins kitchen scraps and leaves and, brown leaves, green leaves, yellow leaves, all in there. And it's got to be kept wet, whether it's rain or you're watering it with a hose. You'll turn around and walk over one day, even if there's no soil in there, and if tomatoes land in there, any seeds that land in there, papaya seeds, tomatillo seeds, it doesn't matter. Any seeds that land in there, they'll grow right in the breaking down matter. I have had containers that have had absolutely not one speck of soil, native soil, sand, anything in there, just the food rotting in there, because I was just loading it in there. At first I was thinking of moving it, spreading it around, which you still can do. But I grew great food out of the breaking down food. Now, it is good. I do like to add a little bit of native soil because that's going to add in some minerals. Now, that's not to say your leaves won't have minerals, because they will pull up minerals in the leaves. The roots go into the ground. Think of a moringa tree, which is well known for the minerals it has. The roots go deep in the ground. It pulls the minerals up. The minerals go through the entire plant, through the bark, through the inside of the plant, into the leaves, and then when the leaves dry and fall to the ground, the minerals don't disappear. Minerals, even when there's a fire and there's ash, there are minerals in ash. So minerals are coming out of the leaves. But I still like to take some native soil because that seems to bring the earthworms. I think there's a lot of insects around that we may not see in that soil, and when we throw a little bit of native soil in there, it's amazing how my containers just fill with earthworms. So I'm not saying or promoting just grow in breaking down matter, but what I am saying is it can be done, and that's the thing that's exciting. I've had orange trees, I don't want to deal with them, but orange seeds grow in there, apple seeds grow in there, they'll all grow in there. The main thing is it has to remain damp to a point. It doesn't have to be sopping wet. You don't want it waterlogged, but damp. So when you would take a shovel and move it and check it, it would be damp, not dry. If it dries out, you've lost it, because your microbes, your earthworms in there, water is life. It needs some sort of water. Now, if you did have a compost bin and you did forget to water it, and it got hot, and the sun's beating on it, and it dried out to nothing, and everything in there is gone, and it is a loss, well, it's not a total loss. Start over, right on top of it. Start dumping more kitchen scraps on it, dump some leaves, and keep it wet, and hit it with a hose. Treat your compost bin as if it's flowers you're watering. Just think of it, a bed of flowers. You're going to go out there and make sure that it's not going to dry out. You're going to make sure your grass that's growing, and you want to keep it green, is not going to dry out. That's how you treat your compost bins, as if it's a living plant. I don't care if there's nothing growing in it. That's how you treat it. You just water it and treat it like a living plant. And that's where you're going to just find out how great it is to grow food in. So, to answer that question that I've been asked, do you actually grow in the breaking down matter that you're bringing out of your kitchen and dumping in your containers? Do you grow in it right away, or do you wait? And the answer is, I grow in it right away. And many times it will grow whether I want it to grow or not. I try to move out plants, because what ends up in my compost bins, because it's cold compost, it does not heat up, I end up with more plants than I need. A lot of times I leave them because the strongest will survive. So if 50 tomato plants start growing and I'm busy and I'm not going to move it, they won't all grow, because the strongest will survive. The other ones won't be able to catch up to the strongest ones, and the other ones will become part of the compost, breaking down matter, and the strong ones will survive. Squash will do the same thing. So it would be better in that case that if you want some of them to grow, whether it's melons or whether it's zucchini or whatever, to thin them out. That would be the best thing to do, because you could end up with dozens of small ones and nothing's going to get really big because they're all competing with each other. So at that point, I would definitely thin them out. But, if you don't bother, that's what you're going to happen. Eventually, the strongest will survive, and that will take over and grow. And that's usually what happens in the compost bins that I just don't pay attention to for whatever reason. So, yes, don't throw that away, because food matter is gold. I'm not going to tell anybody not to go buy plant food. If you want to go to the store and buy plant food, more power to you. I make my own plant food. I make my own compost tea on top of that. Once the plants are established, I'm not going to add any more compost in there unless it starts to break down the soil and drop down, because a lot of times you'll have, let's say, a container full to the top, and as the plant grows, it will drop down. I can add more to the top. There's a lot of different things I do. So I hope I answered your questions on, do I grow in it right away? I do. If you want to grow in it really quick and you don't want any critters around, the best thing to do is start putting together your compost bin, start dumping in your kitchen scraps, and once you think there's enough in there or you want to start another one, top it with some potting soil or garden soil. Garden soil is cheaper. If you go to the store, you'll find it's almost half price. Potting soil's got perlite in it and certain things they put in it that brings the price up. You don't really need it when you're composting this way. But if you want, you can buy potting soil. Otherwise, just get what's called garden soil. And if you don't want to do that, put a 1 or 2 inch layer on top of your native soil and then just plant. Plant what you want. Get some zucchini seeds. Go to the nursery. Buy some plants that you want to grow. Just plant what you want to plant. This is the way I'm going. I'm just going and going and going. I have so many tips of things I do, but I think I've answered your question on this. Feel free to ask questions. I'll keep trying to answer. You know, we're all learning together, and, you know, I'll learn from you, and hopefully you'll learn from me, and we'll discover new things, and that's the fun part. We're going to grow, and we're all going to grow together and be healthier for it and have fun, and it's so relaxing. I love going out in my garden in the evening and hand watering, away from the phone, no cell phone on me, no nothing, just me and nature. I love it. Have a great day, and don't forget to eat what you grow. Bye-bye, everybody.